Hey, everybody, welcome to today's show. Welcome to Mailbox Nuggets. My name's Dean Renfro. Glad to have you with us today. Appreciate you being here. Today, I celebrate 41 years of marriage. It's been an awesome relationship with this woman. We've had good times, bad times, hard times, sad times. We've lost parents. We've lost best friends. We've lost our home. We've lost health a time or two. We've had three great kids in the process, and four grandkids, and there's been moments when we've been totally excited, and there's been moments when we're like, what in the world's going on here? And I'm going to talk about that today because I often get asked that, and people come on and say, wow, 41 years, how do you do that? Well, in today's world, it is an accomplishment to be married for 40 years to the same person. It's a pretty big deal. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, and hopefully you understand and can come to grips with what does it really take to be able to do that. Well, I'm going to talk about five things that I think is really, really important. Five things that have kind of been at the foundation of everything that I've lived with my wife for 41 years, and how we've done that. So, got a question? Be sure to throw it in the comments. I'll be glad to answer it if I can. But I'm gonna talk about these five things. I think it becomes real important in today's world. There's so much turmoil. There's so much struggle. There's so many things that are just really, really a problem, for people. And I want to talk a little bit about that today. The first thing has been huge for us is we had a prenup agreement. Now, it wasn't financial at all. Matter of fact, before we got married, LaVon and I had a conversation about where life was headed for us, and we decided, very first thing, one of the foundation components that we had a conversation about was there would be no divorce ever for no reason whatsoever. And we have held to that. Matter of fact, we've hardly ever even talked about that since that day. We made this agreement that there's not going to be a divorce, that we will work it out. We will figure it out. We will do this together in the process. And so we've worked through the process of that. There's been some difficult moments. Believe me, being married to a person like me, and in the profession I have been in for 47 years, can be a strain on any relationship for anybody. When you're in the industry of serving people and helping people, sometimes the very people that you serve and work with are the very reason your life gets in a mess. And because you're trying to help people who don't always appreciate the fact that you've helped them, who don't appreciate the fact that you walk down the road with them. They don't appreciate the fact that you've saved them from heartache and turmoil, and you've had to absorb it. And I have a pro woman that does that. She is excellent at what she does. But the first key was we had some arrangements before we ever started. Now, I come from a broken home, so that was important for me. She comes from a home where she lived in the same place till she was married. Her parents were highly committed to each other, and her grandmother and grandfather lived next door, and the aunt lived on the other side, and uncles lived on the other side of that. So she came from a very stable environment. I came from a very unstable environment, at least for a big part of my first part of my life. And it was a constant turmoil. So one thing that was really important to me that we agreed about first was no divorce. We will work this out. We'll be committed to this, and we'll work this out. Now, I'm not judging anybody with that. I'm not saying if you've had those issues, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying one of the keys that we had is that we had some agreements up front in the process. The second agreement that we had in that agreement was that my wife understood that she was marrying somebody that was going to be in a very different world in which she grew up. Like I said, she lived at the same place her whole life. and she entered into a relationship with me in an environment that was going to lead to multiple times living in different places. Matter of fact, by the time we had been married 24 years, we'd moved 21 times. And she'd never experienced anything ever like that. But we got through it. But in the beginning, we understood that life's going to look very different. See, it's important in the beginning for you to have conversation, to have real conversation. I'm going to talk about that because that's an important key too that we learned along the way that became a big player in everything that we did. But hey, I'm glad you're with us here today. My name's Dean Renfro. This is Mailbox Nuggets, one of the broadcasts I do. And you've got comments or you've got questions that you'd like to ask or make during my show, just type that in the comments below. Hopefully I'll see them. And if not, I'll respond to them after. If you're watching us on the replay, appreciate you. Take the opportunity to comment, share if you would for that. But the first key was we had a prenup about no divorce. We're not going to do it. We're going to work through it. We never put ourselves in a situation where that would become even an option. See, that's what happens a lot of times in people in their relationships is they get themselves into things that bring that to question, that bring that into as one of the variables. We made an agreement. It's never going to be, we're never going to get ourselves in that kind of thing. We're not going to get ourselves there in having a relationship with other people of the opposite sex. We're not going to get there. We're not going to find ourselves in relationships that would cause there to be unfaithfulness. We're not going to put ourselves in that emotionally with baggage. We're always going to be open to getting that worked out, which kind of became one of the other keys of what I want to talk about is communication. So a lot of people don't know how to communicate. They talk a lot. I hear couples talking all the time. I hear couples demeaning their spouse and their parents. I hear that all the time with people. I'm thinking, you're setting yourself up to wind up not to stay with this person. Because you see, we built into our relationship that we value each other and who each other are. We're very different people. We're very different in our personalities. We're very different in our backgrounds. We're very different in the way we communicate. We're very different in our ideas. We're different in a lot of ways, but there are some ways that we're alike. And we learned early on that's where we had to meet. That's where we had to come together, was in the things that where our personalities meet. We understand that piece of our personality. See, most people in life spend their time reacting. In other words, that they're not in charge, and so they react to everything. Well, you bring that into a relationship, and guess what you find out? You spend all your time reacting. You spend all your time trying to get the other person on the page with you instead of finding out where can we get on the page together naturally. We found that early on. Now, we didn't know it at the time. We didn't know how it worked. We just found out that it would work, right? We found out that it would work. And so the process for us has been to do that over and over and over again. First of all, one of the things that LaVon brought in from her relationship that I'd never thought about because of the relationships in my life of family that I came out of, she came into the relationship with the kind of the process and principle of that the Bible talks about is no unfinished business at the end of the day. And then that's kind of built on the idea, don't let the sun go down upon your anger, upon your wrath. Don't go to bed angry. It's not good for you. Not good for you emotionally, physically, relationally, mentally. And so one of the things that was important in our relationship is if there was tension, if we were in a struggle, we would work through it first before the day was up. Sometimes those days went into nights. Sometimes those days lasted more than one day. But the idea was we would not just let it go and just release it and let it fester and grow. Because if you've ever gotten a splinter in your skin, and you just say, well, man, I don't know. I don't want to, man, that looks like that'd be painful. And you just let it sit there. It festers and our body attacks it, and it gets really sore, and it gets really red, and it gets really bad. And it hurts a whole lot more than taking it out. So we decided early on that it was important that we let no anger go, let no anger continue, let nothing, no unfinished business, no unfinished emotions each and every day. And we have been pretty good at that. We've been pretty faithful at that. Now, again, it's because we learned in a process from some very dear friends of ours about our personalities, and the fact that I'm one of those speak now, think later kind of people. I'm very quick in my thinking and my process and what I've got to say and finding a solution, even if it's the wrong solution at the moment. She's very different. She's very methodical and very cautious and very, our personality, it brings the concept of very sweet and let's don't rock the boat and let's figure this out. But where our personalities meet is in the concept of looking at things from a logical position, of thinking it through, of sitting down and going, this doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense, and there's got to be an answer to that, and there's got to be an answer to this. Let's talk this through. And so that's where our personalities meet. And guess what? That happens to be a place where we both can go and become unemotional in the process, look at things from a very practical. It's like, you know what? That's not going to work. And we don't get all emotional over whether it's our idea or somebody else's idea or somebody's actions. We don't, not to say that we're perfect at it, but what I'm saying is that we find out that we know where to meet each other. Now, here's what I know about LaVon. She's going to ask 10 million questions. I can't get offended by that. Like, one question's one too many for me. It's like, while you're thinking of the question and trying to figure out the answer, I've already made it and moved on. Matter of fact, I've already done something, which oftentimes, it gets looked at. Don't be rash. Okay. Well, you know what? I'm not being rash. I'm being me. And my idea is some action is better than no action. Some action is taking us somewhere, because energy set in motion creates direction, but it also creates friction. So I had to learn how to work through that. She had to learn to take that if I get emotional, that I'm not upset. My tone sometimes is off. Most people tell you most of the time my tone is off. I sound like either one, I'm too serious, or I'm mad, or I'm really, really upset. And I'm usually not any of those things. I'm just passionate about what I believe in and what I want to talk about and what I want to get done. Right? So that's kind of how that works. We learned early on communication, no unfinished business. And then, like I said, we learned the value of our differences. See, a lot of couples never learn the value of their differences. We learned early on that in the process, there were things that I was going to be able to do and take a hold of that she would never do and take a hold of. And then there's things I know that she's really good at, and she's way, way more efficient and way, way more effective at some things than I am. And we learn to work those together with each other. Now, it took a couple kids for us to figure all that out, and it took a couple of disasters, so to speak, in our life to figure it all out, but we figured it out. And that was the key thing. We had this commitment to make it work. A commitment to make it work. We had an agreement early to make it work. We had a communication process that we worked through what we do. We still use it to today, even though our kids are grown and we have grandkids and that kind of thing. We still work through this process, and we still laugh about things. We at each other when there's moments of, oh, you're being you and I'm being me kind of a thing. And, we just have learned not to take each other so serious in the process, but understand that's where that person is coming from. And when you value somebody else's position and place and where they're coming from and how they look at something and how they view it, you don't see it as an attack against you. Okay. The number three key that we learned is to live our life on a set of values, on things that matter. One of those things was family matters. That our family's important, and keeping our family intact. One of my mentors said it best, and at the end of life, with those who know you the best, love you the most. Well, that's what we want to strive for. Oftentimes we find families and with kids and so forth, they're totally separated because they went through some kind of trauma in those teenage years where a lot of bad things happened. Terrible words got said, awful words were said, things were done, things were created, and all this stuff happened, and people can't let go of that. Well, we decided we're not going to do that. We're going to live with a set of values. The second value we determined that we would live with would be what the Bible says, godly values. It would base our life on what the Word of God says, because we knew it was eternal. We knew it was not going to change. There's a lot of things that change in our world, and we're kind of going through some of that right now. But we're not. We haven't. We don't like some things that are going on, but where we're at and what we decided a long time ago hadn't changed one bit. We know our relationship with God is the most important thing that we have in our life. It's the most important thing in our marriage. We know that God has to be first before each other. And we've had to make that call on numerous occasions. We knew that we had to do what the Bible said. We had to be obedient over everything else, even when it wasn't going to be popular, even when it was going to put us in some situations where it's like, well, this is what we have to do, the right thing here. Even though it may cost us, we have to do the right thing here. We have to be the grown-up in the room, so to speak. Sorry about that. And so we had to make that determination. When you do a show, be sure to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, because somebody will call you. Okay. Reality is that we had to make a values-driven life. We had to make a values-driven life on how we would live life. Were we going to get caught up in the concepts of a bunch of stuff in the world? There's nothing, understand, there's nothing wrong. I'm a capitalist through and through. There's nothing wrong with stuff. I hope you have all the stuff you want, as long as that stuff doesn't drive your life to be able to a point where it separates you from everything that you need in life. Okay. It keeps you from following God. It keeps you from living your vision and your dream. It keeps you from loving your family. It keeps you from being there for your family. It keeps you from having honest communication. If all that stuff does that to you, then I don't think that's a very good value to have. Nothing wrong with it, as long as it's got its place, right? So we determined that was important. We determined, because of our personality played into this. For me, it's something I have to do because it's what keeps me in check. For her, it's something she does naturally, and that's help other people, serve other people. We've been oftentimes too guilty of serving people way too much. In other words, to our own detriment, giving up our own stuff in life to help other people. I mean, we've been there. I mean, we've gone in and helped people keep their homes and then wound up getting, tossed out because they weren't doing their part. And we had to suffer the consequences of it. We've gone the extra mile on people in their relationships and helping them with their financial struggles and wound up losing our own, that kind of stuff. We've wound up moving ourselves to help people accomplish their dream and giving up a part of ours. So, but we had a value to serve people. And at that time we felt like that's important. That's an important step to take. So I say that to you to help you understand that so far these three things are really big. Then the fourth one is living a philosophy of this too will pass. There's a lot of times in the heat of the moment that we think we're going to get crushed by life, by circumstances, by people, by whatever. But we've learned that it's only a moment, and it will pass on. You can go beyond. You're going to get through it. The sun will come up in the morning, right? The sun will come up in the morning. All right, let me do something here so that this person won't keep calling me back, because they're not going to give up. This too will pass. You know, you will get past this. You will get over this, right? You will get beyond this, whether it's getting fired from a job, whether it's losing your home in a flood, whether it's having to give up the very thing that's most important to you. You get past that. Whether it's having somebody do you wrong, come against you, thinking they know what you're doing, or accusing you of things, only to find out that wasn't the real problem at all, and all this other stuff was too late, and you lose everything you got. You find out you can get past this. You get past this, and you especially get past to it when you're married to somebody that's willing to help you get past it. Who doesn't look at you and blame you, who doesn't look at you and point fingers at you, but who determines and decides we're in this together, and we will get past this together, not separate, but together. Whether it's getting through the process of hearing bad health reports and figuring out how we're going to get past this, or having parents die, of losing best friends in traumatic moments, of getting past it, because this too will pass. That's been a real important. That may not be for you, but it is for us to understand we will get past this. And then number 5 is have an eternal perspective on life, and the concept of that we have a relationship of respect in this process of eternal. In other words, what I'm saying to you is we realize that someday we have to stand before God and give an account for ourselves individually, and then for ourselves as leaders of our family, as ourselves as leaders in our congregations. That we'd have to give an account for that, and so we live with this respect of our relationship with God. That's important. An eternal perspective. Everything has to run through that grid. And for some people, that never enters the universe for them. They never think about that. For us, it's the first thought. How does this play out in the eternity? See, because the second principle of that is this place that we live in, this life we live, this is not it. This is not it. There's something beyond this that matters more. There's something beyond this that helps us realize that this is just a preparation for the real place that we're going to be, in a relationship with Christ forever. Now, you may not be a religious person watching this show, but that part may not make totally any sense whatsoever to you. But I want to tell you this is important, because it's been a key part of our 41 years, is that we realize that this it that we live in is not it. That this is just a preparation for it. Well, I hope today this helps you understand a little bit about it. And I realize that for you in your life and your walk and your relationships, and if you're married in your marriage, that it may not be where you're at. It may not be something you can implement. You may have been married already. You may be married already. You may be going through a problem already. You may even be divorced in the process. You may not even be thinking about marriage. But what I am saying to you today is that these 5 keys have helped us for 41 years get through all of it. To love each other, to respect each other, to honor each other, to be there for each other. Even when times that looked like we couldn't be, we were able to do that. I hope this was helpful today. If you'd like to leave a comment, please do so. If you think this will help somebody else, be sure to share it. Be sure to share the Mailbox Nuggets with them show today and say, hey, you should watch this. Hopefully there's something in here that's encouraging. If I can help you in any way, just comment to me in the box, reach out to me, personal message me. I'll be glad to do that and help you with that process. But we're so glad to have you with us today. Appreciate you being here. Hope you have a great rest of today. And if you're married, that you have a great year. A great year today. Hope today is the first day of that for you, if that needs to be. Hope these words encourage you with that. For us, we're working on 42. Good Lord willing, we'll see you next year at 42. Have a great rest of today.